The Mike Crivello's world is a wonderful world of cameras.
And I think that's about all I really know by heart. But
Troy, welcome to Groth Gets a Podcast. I start my podcasts like I start my depositions. Can you please state your name and spell your last name for the record?
Heck yes. My name is Troy Freund. Freund is spelled Freund.
And Troy Freund Photography. LLC. So that's how we met.
Yes.
And we met, I don't know, it's got to be years ago, right?
Some years ago now, yes. You know, I mean, making pictures of lawyers.
Yeah, that's a good business. I don't think we're too much too difficult, are we? Taking photography of
every photo subject is different.
Yeah,
you know, some photo subjects like to be really engaged. Let's call it in the process, and some just want to be told what to do so they can get it done quick, so they can get on with their day.
Yeah,
everybody's different.
Yeah. So we've, I think, taken photos, or you've taken photos of us for years for the Super Lawyers organization.
Correct.
And then Super Lawyers takes it and puts it in Milwaukee Magazine. So that goes back to the how we know each other is you're local to Milwaukee. We're in Milwaukee, obviously. And that's how we got to know each other. And it's just interesting because we also know you from Mike Crivello's world. And my staff and I have been singing that song. Tyree, do you want to sing the song? No, we're not going to. Okay. But certainly we have all heard it. I think it's next to Jingle Bells, one of the most popular Christmas type songs because it's on the radio, I think. It does have a vibe. Yeah. It reminds me of a holiday.
Well, that's interesting to hear.
Which is good.
Yes, you know, and that they've had that jingle around since like the early 80s, I believe it was. And very interesting thing is just a few years ago, I did get to sit down with Mike Crivello himself and shoot a little interview, sort of like what we're doing here. And in that interview, which is on Mike Crivello's YouTube channel, you get to hear him sort of talk about like the origins of Mike Crivello's camera stores in general and about the jingle in specific. And it's quite interesting. Like they have never changed that jingle. They have tried to change the jingle in the past, and people have been like, no. Don't change it. We like the original. So I don't know. I guess they struck gold that first time.
Well, did he write the jingle, or did he commission someone to write the jingle?
I believe it was commissioned.
Okay.
I believe it was commissioned.
Interesting. Yes. So this morning, as I saw you getting out of your car, and then I immediately went to my computer and Googled Mike Crivello's theme song, I think is what I Googled. And then YouTube came up with a bunch of, I'm assuming, random people who have created an homage to the Mike Crivello's jingle. And there was one couple that are all dressed up in, I don't know why they have
the various
wigs
sort of costumes.
on.
Yes, I've seen that.
And they're
one.
just singing the song or lip syncing the song. Yeah.
The jingle has gotten out around the country, and what is his name? Dan Harmon, the guy who created the TV show Community. Is from Milwaukee area, from Shorewood, I believe. Okay, and he is a big fan of that jingle, and so has talked about it on his own podcasts and media, and because of that, people all around the country have heard about the Mike Crivello's jingle.
Oh my gosh.
It's kind of amazing.
So I am in a good company when I'm walking around the office and singing the song.
You are in very good company.
Yeah, okay, cool. So photography, and that takes us to Mike Crivello's and then that kind of stuff. So let's go back to photography. So you are a photographer. That's one of your jobs, one of your career paths. How did you get into photography?
Right. Interesting thing I think is that, well, heck, as a child and stuff, I did do photography. I was a good 4-H member out in Mayville, Wisconsin. I was part of the Golden Rule 4-H club, and one of the projects you could always do was photography. And I did do that a few times. But really, and honest to gosh, my passion has always been comic books. From being a young child straight up to and into college, I was, in my mind, destined to be a comic book creator, a writer, an artist, and do the whole shebang. But while in college at Cardinal Stritch University, working on my BFA with an emphasis in illustration, I had to take photography. I had to take photography as just part of the course load. And so that junior year of my college experience, I took my first serious class in photography. And it was really kind of neat. It really sort of clicked with me. And that was a fall semester. That Christmas break, I actually went out to New York City for the entire month to do a unpaid internship with Marvel Comics. Like, yeah, this was in the day where you could simply look up Marvel in the phone book, call them and say, hey, I want to do an internship at Marvel. Do you take interns?
So this is now, we might go on a tangent. Then this might be a 5-hour podcast. Have you listened to the Journal Podcast's 4-part series about the origin of Marvel Marvel Productions or Marvel movies?
No,
you got to listen to it because
Okay.
it's. I'm assuming, was this in the 80s or 90s?
This would have been early 90s. Early 90s.
Then Marvel was sold to, I forget the guy's name.
There was a couple of corporate moves and transitions.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it goes from the toy makers who bought Marvel in the mid to late 90s with the goal of selling more toys. So they bought Marvel and then created this production company with it sounded like the sole purpose of just selling toys.
I can believe it.
So it's fascinating. So if you were in the mix of that, I think this podcast is something you'd probably really appreciate.
I will have to seek that one out.
Yeah.
You know, an interesting thing then is that, so I did go to New York and it was strictly an editorial internship. So my main job was just sitting in the corner of this office on a folding chair, getting coffee, making copies, whatever the editors I was working for needed me to do. But on the rest of the time that I wasn't at the Marvel offices, I was just walking around New York City by myself. Like, 20, 21 years old, had just learned how to use a camera properly, don't know anybody. And so I spent a month making pictures in New York City. It was incredible.
Yeah.
And the kind of crazy thing I would say is that at the end of that internship, this again had to be like early 90s, Marvel up to that point had an open submission policy such that any artist could send samples of their work into Marvel, and Marvel would at some point look at that artwork. The last week that I was at Marvel, the editor I was working for had me go through that submissions file that one office had and send a form letter to every goddamn artist in there saying, hey, thanks for sending us your work. Don't call us, we'll call you.
Yeah, okay.
And I saw this artwork and I'm like, oh my God, like there's some good stuff here. Like I am not approaching this. And I've, to this point, like devoted my life to comic book art. And I am not as good as these guys who are getting a form letter from an intern in an editorial office.
Yeah.
So I sort of came back from that experience and was like, wow, I still love comics. And to this day, I still love comics. It's a beautiful medium. You can tell so many kinds of stories beyond just superheroes and stuff. But so I came back from that and went, there are more ways to make a living and more variety of ways in photography potentially than there are in comic books. So I can still be a comic book fan. I can be a comic book fan all my life. But if I'm going to make a living, I might have to consider something else. And from that point on, my path was photography, and it still is. It's still an amazing thing.
So I'm going to keep on going back to the Marvel thing. I apologize.
So I don't mind.
Kirby or Stan Lee, or were they around?
Oh God, well, I did see Stan Lee.
Okay.
I did see Stan Lee. Because I was there over Christmas break, they had a holiday party, corporate holiday party, and us interns did get to go to that. And Stan Lee was in attendance at that, so I did get to see Stan the Man Lee in person. Also, there was one of my favorite comic book writers was there, a guy named Larry Hama, who is famous for like all the issues of G.I. Joe. That he's written. And he was there, and I got to say hello to him and be like, oh wow, Mr. Hama, like I love your work. You're amazing. And could I have a picture with you? Right. And so I handed my camera, just a little film point and shoot, to one of the other interns to take a picture of us. And so I get to stand with Larry Hama, and the intern takes a picture, and it's awesome. And the film, eventually I get the film back. And because, well, of the way camera technology was at the time, everything was center based on the autofocus. Well, so if you have two people stand together and the person centers the picture, it might focus right between them. So in this great picture I have of me and Larry Hama, we're both out of focus.
Oh, no.
But the background is nice and sharp. And so that's my picture of me and Larry Hama at the Marvel like corporate Christmas party. It's like,
well, we were talking about that. So photography. So that's what I grew up with was you put film in the camera, and then At some point, you go to Microvello's World or wherever, or Arts.
Arts is out there also. Yeah, Arts Camera Plus.
Arts Camera Plus, yeah. So we used to go through the drive-through, I think.
Okay, yep.
Go through the drive-through, you drop off your bag of film,
pouch, yep.
your pouch, and then at some point in the next week or so, you'd get your pouch of whatever glossy or matte, whatever you wanted back.
Yep.
That's different, obviously, now. So nowadays, and let's go back to the photography thing, do you see much film getting developed?
It's kind of shocking how much film we do process at Microvello's. We are going through a lot of film, and there has been an uptick, and I think that's partially due to a variety of factors. For one, social media is a powerful force out there, and if you have some big names talk about, oh, I love my Yashica T4, which is like a late 1990s era film point and shoot that I think at the time cost maybe $500 or $600. If you can find them used, they're easily going for about that same price yet. It's remarkable. Yeah. So people get, hip to the tip, and they go out and they seek these things out. And a lot of the younger crowd out there have never worked with an analog camera before. So they're latching onto this as well and just experiencing something different. And so I sort of joke at the camera shop that we do process a lot of film, and it's all for people either under the age of 30 or over the age of 60. Yeah. Because it's either people who have never gone digital or people who have been born digital and have never experienced analog before. So we process a lot of film. We make a lot of prints. We do a lot of scans. The great thing about what we do at Microvello's is that everything is done in-house. Like I'd say 98% of the services that we provide in that store happen within that store. So very few things get outlabbed. Very few things get done by somebody else who's not a direct employee of that store. And that's, I think, generates a lot of faith in people, because they know it's getting done by us.
Is there a person in the back who's literally developing film?
If it's black and white film, we do actually process black and white film by hand.
Wow.
So when you drop off a roll of black and white film, eventually there's going to be a dude standing in back with a stainless steel canister for 10 minutes, shaking it while it's full of chemistry.
Wow, interesting.
Actualizing that black and white film. But we've got, I think it's two, three employees who, every digital file, every negative that comes in goes through the machines before their eyes, and they tweak things if they think it needs it as such. And I think they do a pretty darn good job.
Interesting. So what do you use in your photography?
Myself, if I'm doing film photography, I've got a Leica M6, which is like a classic rangefinder style film camera that I've had since it'd be like late 90s, since the late 90s. Professionally, I currently work with Olympus, or they're now called OM system cameras. It's a micro four thirds camera system, digital camera system that I really like. It's small, it's lightweight, it's durable, and it makes great pictures.
And it's digital. You're all digital.
And anybody who's, not anybody, but the easy majority of anybody who is working professionally nowadays is probably shooting professional.
Okay.
I do think it is interesting in the portrait and wedding market. There is probably a small number of shooters out there who are, shooting film and, charge a premium for it, because now it's an experience. I'm shooting analog. What's also been interesting is that there's been a rise in, with a lot of digital photography, it can sort of look cold. It can sort of, seem absent of a soul of sorts. And so a lot of people have begun exploring either more antique processes or alternative processes. I know, for instance, just in the Milwaukee area alone, we've got, two or three photographers who are straight up tin type photographers.
What does that mean?
Tin type meaning it's like the old school type of photography where there isn't film, but there is a piece of polished thin metal that you coat with an emulsion and then stick into the back of a camera and make a very slow exposure with. So,
oh my gosh. So like 1800s type Civil War cameras.
We're talking like 1860s era kind of stuff, even prior to that even. Yeah. So, what was his name? Matthew Brady?
Matthew Brady. One of my kids did a report on Matthew Brady.
Okay,
Yeah.
So like if you look up Margaret Musa is this wonderful woman in town who I believe was probably like the first popular tintype photographer in Milwaukee in modern era here.
Okay.
And she makes incredibly beautiful portraits. Like she knows how to make beautiful tintype photography. There's another gentleman I know, John Stair, a buddy of mine who had been working at the Charles Allis Art Museum and left his role there to become a tintype photographer.
And that's his full-time job.
He has moved out to the Southwest somewhere. I forget exactly where the heck he is now, but in like a tourist ghost town sort of destination, doing tintype portraits for people.
Interesting.
It's kind of wild. Yeah. So I do think photography is in a very interesting state right now because, yeah, you can have people who are using like the latest, the greatest high-tech digital technology. And at the same point, there are people doing viable things using these antique processes as well. It's kind of remarkable.
Yeah. And so your photography, how many, I guess, what's your week like or month like? I mean, is it something where you're visiting lawyers on one day and then the next day you're going to taking pictures of, I don't know, the waste management crew? I don't know who,
right.
who it would be, right?
What the heck do I do?
Yeah,
yes.
yeah.
It's been about about a little over 20 years that I've been working as an independent on location portrait photographer. Like that sort of sums up what I do. And so when I do have an assignment, it's people. It's always people, and usually it's situational or environmental portraits. So it's very rare that you see me making a portrait of somebody just against a flat backdrop, though I've done that on occasion. In the decades of me doing this, I've never had my own studio, though. I've always been a location guy, so I'm always going to my subjects. To me, that just made more sense. But what is my week like? What is my month like? It honestly varies all over the place because, heck, doing the actual photography, and I suspect this might be true. I can only speak to my own experience, but I'm sure I'm not alone in this. The actual time spent doing the photography is probably the smallest part of what I do.
So the on-site stuff is 20% of your whole project base.
Let's even say 15 to 20%. Okay. But the rest of the time you're in contact with clients, you're trying to drum up work, you're maintaining those relationships. And for me, I am doing lots of other stuff. As we talked about earlier, I do social media management for a local theater company and for a local homeless sanctuary and for Mike Ravello's as well. So heck, at this point, I've just sort of determined to call myself a professional creative.
Yeah.
Because photography is definitely the biggest thing I do and what I'm most known for. But I do other stuff as well. So all of it sort of combines to be this profession that I'm doing on my own.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting. So with our project, for example, you came out, all your stuff, there were bags and cords and all that. And it'll be very general because I don't know what the actual words are, but I know it was a lot of cool things. And you set up in our conference room and took pictures. Maybe it was, I don't know, hour tops from beginning to end.
I'd say at the most. Yeah.
And then
hour and a quarter. Yeah.
Then you took off and went to your bat cave, wherever it was, where the magic happens.
Yeah.
And then how much time did it take you to go through those maybe hundreds of photographs you took to figure out, I like these? And then after you figure out which ones you liked, what did you do to those?
Right. Well, and any photographer who is working professionally nowadays is probably shooting raw files. Raw files being like the most manipulable, highest quality sort of files that a digital camera can turn out. So in the type of photography that I do, the type of portrait photography that I do, I'm not a big fan of manipulating those files much or of overly retouching things like that. So the post-production on most of my photos is not terribly extensive. The biggest part probably is the sorting aspect, going through the files, determining which ones are potentials, which ones are keepers, which one might you like, enjoying of yourself, as well as which ones might the end client want to see as well. So one of the neat challenges, and I think one of the more interesting challenges for me, is I like getting picky. So going through these, maybe 60, 70 pictures that all look pretty similar, but there are distinct differences between them. Going through all those and saying, okay, I've got 70 pictures here, that's overwhelming for most people. So I'm going to whittle that down to 10. And from those 10, we're going to have to choose one. So just that whittling process, I like that a lot.
Yeah.
Just seeing what difference a small lift of the chin or a turn of the head or the shoulders can make in terms of that body language that communicates.
Sure.
It's very interesting.
And was that, I don't know who said begin with the end in mind. Was that Lombardi or somebody? I'm not quite sure who said that, but somebody famous, I'm sure, said it. So, but that's exactly correct with your business. They have to begin with the end in mind, because you have to look at, okay, this is going to be on the back page of a magazine, for example.
Right.
So is it portrait? Is it landscape? Do I need blank space on the left or right or whatever?
Exactly.
And then you're setting that up before you even come into the conference room or wherever you're shooting. You're probably thinking of what it's going to look like in the end.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I always, a lot of the work that I do is for publication. So depending upon what kind of publication it is and how they intend to use those images, whether it will be for a back cover or a front cover, it really is important that I always know as much as I can about that end product, so that, so I can deliver the best photo for that situation.
Yeah.
What is it? What's the local business magazine? Milwaukee Biz
Milwaukee
Times
Magazine or Milwaukee Lifestyle
Biz Times
Magazine?
Milwaukee, something like that.
Business Journal?
Oh, there's two. Well, regardless, the one that I worked for, there was one of these. I did covers for about 3 years, and it was interesting because, anytime you shoot this cover, our inclination often with portraits is to get close. Fill that frame with that subject. Just get right in there with them. But I knew I was always shooting for a cover, so whatever I thought might be the proper composition, well, maybe I had to take, 2-3 steps back, because I always had to make sure I was allowing for space for the masthead, for the article headlines on the front, stuff like that. So shooting covers was always a lot of fun.
Yeah.
But you definitely needed to know, again, what's the end use.
Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah.
All right. Because we're getting towards the end here, but the social media aspect, I think, is interesting, and it's very generous of you helping out these two companies. So the one is let's go with the theater first. So it's a roving theater?
Yep, the roving theater. Well, that's not the roving theater, but they are a roving theater, the Boulevard Theater.
Okay.
They've been in Milwaukee for pushing, I believe, just over 30 years, doing a lot of Milwaukee and Wisconsin premieres of scripts. They've got a production coming up in early September called Significant Other, which is a story about what is it like when your best friend decides that they're going to get married and you might feel a little left behind.
Okay.
What's that friendship dynamic like when you really want to be happy for your best friend, but you're going to miss him.
Yeah, yeah.
And what is that like? How do we let go?
Yeah.
So that's coming up, and that should be very cool.
Okay. That sounds like a tearjerker.
It's got some emotional beats in it for sure.
Yeah.
It's a good script. It's our second time putting it on, so I can say already, if you didn't catch Significant Other when we put it on this past summer, find the Boulevard Theater on Facebook and try and get into this next showing, because it is good.
And Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, or what's the social media that Boulevard Theater's on?
They favor Facebook, but they are also on Instagram and Twitter as well.
Okay.
So the Boulevard Theater, Significant Other.
Okay. Awesome. And then one that we are involved in personally, our family is the McKinnon Brown.
McKinnon Brown Homeless Sanctuary.
Okay.
Founded by Sister McKinnon Brown. She is a dynamo of energy and passion. They do declare themselves to be a homeless sanctuary, not a homeless shelter, so that nobody sleeps overnight here. But what services you need, if you need a change of clothes, if you need a shower, if you need some food, because the sanctuary is based in the 53206, one of the most economically depressed areas in Milwaukee, if not in the state. There are a lot of people in a lot of need there, and Sister McCannon's mission is doing amazing work. They've got a community garden that locals and volunteers work in. They give out food and clothing on a weekly basis. It's just a very amazing organization.
Yeah.
McKinnon Brown Homeless Sanctuary. Their main social media platform is on Facebook.
Okay. And you manage the social media, or you help with the social media? Do you manage it, or what do you do for the social media
for these organizations?
World, yeah. Are you posting things? Are you recording activities that take place, or what?
All those things. Okay. When they're just as of last week, there is a a farm up near Beaver Dam, Wisconsin, who is a supporter of McCann Brown's efforts. And so they regularly bring down shipments and deliveries of like fresh sweet corn and vegetables to be distributed to the community. Amazing pair of farmers, Nancy and Charlie. And just last week, they were making delivery of a small trailer full of sweet corn, like just picked fresh sweet corn. So sister asked if I was able to come out and photograph that.
Yeah.
So I came out and photographed that, then gave a phone call to the farmers and interviewed them about their involvement with the sanctuary. And then I'm putting together a Facebook post about all that.
Okay.
So, whatever the heck sister needs, I am willing to help out and do.
That's awesome.
Posting, writing, scheduling, making pictures, the whole shebang.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Well, let's try to figure out, I don't know, what should we, what's an achievable goal? So if we can get, 100 likes on our likes or comments on our Facebook, we will make a donation to the McKinnon Brown Homeless Sanctuary. So let's try to we'll post something online and try to drum some additional support, because I know that, like I said, we've had nights at home where we get bread and meat and cheese and make sandwiches and then take it on down there. So I know they're doing very good work over there. So that's fantastic to hear that you're so involved and that they are active on social media, so they can hopefully spread the word.
Well, they can spread the word and people can see just the amazing kind of work that they're doing.
Yeah.
Again, the sanctuary itself is at about 24th and Center. It's like an old warehouse, and they just got approval for the solar panels they're going to be putting on top of the roof.
Oh, interesting.
They're in process on developing an aquaponics program inside the building to grow fresh vegetables for people and stuff. They're building a dining room where people from the area will be able to work and serve and make food and stuff. Like I said, sister is a dynamo, and she has got so many plates spinning. She's just kind of incredible.
Yeah.
So thank you.
Awesome.
Thank you and your family for helping and supporting them as well.
Yeah, well, let's hope we can get some more people to support. This is fantastic.
Fantastic idea to me.
All right. Well, this has been a pleasure. We have maybe a minute left, 48 seconds left. Who wants to start the song? The Mike Crivello's world is a wonderful world of cameras.
And I think that's about all I really know by heart. But if you don't, go look up the store on YouTube. The full jingle is on the Mike Crivello's YouTube channel.
Well, and I didn't realize there's
verses.